Hello, Canada Files viewers. This is Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files. I am here co-hosting the fourth episode of Canada and Palestine, the War on Zionism, with my co-host, Laith Marouf of Free Palestine TV. Laith, thanks for joining yet again for the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you always.
Yeah, and as an aside, it's great to see Free Palestine TV growing with the demand for the news of strong pro-resistance content on the ground. So let's get to the events. Late, what's been happening the last 2 weeks in the region?
Oh, well, it's moving very fast. Obviously, there was the Hamas accepting the offer put by the Egyptians, the Turks, and the Americans. And then we, of course, heard that the Zionists didn't accept that offer. And since then, we've seen the invasion of the Rafah crossing by the Zionists and closing the final place where aid was coming to Gaza. And of course, there was an increase in the intensity of battle on both the border in South Lebanon and the front from Yemen. Now, seeing that the American destroyers getting hit and being pulled out of that side. So, in general, we're moving now to the second stage of this war, which will include much bigger battles zone that will be mainly the axis of resistance, non-state actors like Hezbollah and Ansarullah, and the resistance in Iraq and Syria that are in confrontation with the Zionists to aid the Palestinians of Gaza as the genocide intensifies.
So I think something that certainly needs to be talked about is Rafah and the Israeli attacks. What's going on there? How's the resistance responding? And like what is the extent of the damage? The deaths. What's happening to the Palestinian people in Rafah?
Yeah, I mean, the invasion of Rafah itself didn't happen. So what we saw instead is the Israelis just taking over the border crossing to Egypt at the edge of Rafah in the southeastern edge, and at the same time conduct an invasion of the north of Gaza instead of the south near Jabalia. And that battle has now been ongoing for 72 hours. It's a huge battle. The Israelis, on the first day of that invasion, lost a field general. This is the highest commanding officer of any army that's on the field, and the highest officer that the Israelis have admitted to losing in this war. And we saw videos coming out from Jabalia over the last 2 days, including today, of resistance conducting operations at zero distance from the enemy, putting explosive devices right under tanks. And in these videos that came out in the last 2 days, you can count at least 20, 25 tanks destroyed on video. So you could think about how many others that were not destroyed in recorded evidence of their destruction. And so we also saw helicopters all day today, Israeli helicopters extracting wounded and dead soldiers. That is a big indicator to see a lot of helicopters in and out coming from the field. So on the one hand, we can see that the Israelis actually never won any battle in the north of Gaza, that the resistance is still in control of the field in the north on the ground. They can conduct complex operations and ambushes as they did to this invading force in supposedly the most destroyed area of Gaza. And I don't think we will see any minute yet an invasion of Rafah, but there will be a continuation of this war in this manner, and maybe mass bombardment of Rafah, but an invasion of Rafah will not happen because the Israelis are unable to actually conduct that operation. They will lose tremendously in the field. And couple it with what's happening in Lebanon on the south and what's happening in Yemen, the Israelis are just setting themselves up for a bigger defeat.
Right. Thank you for the context in terms of the events in the region. So on the Canada side, a lot has certainly been happening as well. I think the biggest thing that people can keep an eye on is, of course, the encampments. We've seen some new one, University of Waterloo, but also we've seen less positive events. Of course, universities in two universities in Alberta, their encampments got targeted very viciously by police. But back to the good side is that there's relatively new encampment in McMaster, about 1 to 2 weeks, and of course in the Montreal, McGill, their injunction, the university to try to get this encampment cleared out by police, actually failed. And interestingly enough, they're so aggressive that police had to refuse their requests multiple times, which is quite the incredible turn of events. But I think it showcases desperation on their part from the university. So McGill's demonstration continues. It was UQAM, UQAM,
UCAM, yeah,
yeah, UQAM.
yeah.
They also had an encampment start recently, and I believe one of their demands was, if I remember correctly, I think it was to stop targeting the encampment at McGill, which is, I think, honestly a smart demand, actually. Um, and it brings me to a point where, like, because of your organizing experience, where I'm curious about it. So you have the encampments, right? They're going for their own aims. But in your mind, let's say the average activist or labor activist, is there ways that they can almost, like draw a bit of the pressure away, like police pressure away from the students taking actions around university, around the public space? Because right now, all this I've went to see the University of Toronto encampment with my own eyes. I think it was important to do. And you see the Zionist agitators around there, right? They're attracted to there. It's like a bee to a honeypot. So yeah, what do you think of? Is there a way to actually for people to do that, or are they kind of stuck in that position?
First off, I would say it's what the students are doing right now in Canada is the most radical and the most genuine of any solidarity activities. And these students are risking their degrees, their arrest, they're risking their bodies, they're risking doxing, they're risking a lot. And so if there is uh, any other movement that claims to support Palestinian liberation in Canada, they should be putting all their efforts to support these students. These are the ones that are risking things for Palestine. The other thing that I would say is we saw already the CUT, the Canadian no, the Teachers Union, the TUC, sorry, the Teachers Union of Canada that represents the professors, calling for a censor of the University of Calgary and the University of Alberta in Edmonton, which is a very important move. Professors and their professors' unions now should also take these positions that any university that violates the rights of the professors and the students should also itself be boycotted. Okay, and that is a very important dramatic move. And I would call on these professors' unions and student unions to contact the UNESCO, okay, and the so the sorry the yeah, yes, the UNICEF, and so which gives the accreditation internationally, and which any university that has police or military violate its campus allows that to happen, gets a strike, 3 strikes, this university loses accreditation. So the professors and the students should be taking this to a higher court, basically, where the threats come to these universities that their degrees will be worthless and nobody will be working with them globally if they continue assaulting the rights of the students and the professors. Now, having said that, clearly there's multiple things that people can draw on in Canada to know where to this movement has to go. One of them is what happened in 2012 in Quebec, the student strikes that were strong enough to force the labor movement and other parts of the society to join them in rebellion against the Quebec government for its increase in tuition fees. So if the students can learn from that and right now move over the summer to call for general assemblies for all of the students and to call for strikes and to move the professors' unions to have general assemblies also and call for strikes and call on other labor unions to have general assemblies and call for strikes. This is the way to go forward, because if it's just stuck in the campus, there's limitations to that, and now the summer is coming. People should start thinking of the bigger picture and how to build on things. And finally, I would say the students need to start thinking about security for themselves, for their presence on these campuses. We can see the violence that is coming from these Zionists across the United States and Canada in attacking these encampments. There should be honest security, clear security for these encampments, and looking forward, people should start also organizing in cell formations, because you cannot expect that you have to expect actually that there will be saboteurs, there'll be tools, there'll be fools, there'll be agents coming into these encampments and into these movements, and people should start now working with those assumptions that there will be everywhere these tools, fools, and agents, and they have the students specifically need to take care of themselves and organize in cell formations of especially when they want to do radical actions.
All right, Laith. So there's a lot of other elements happening on the Canada front now. I think I've seen Eve hit on this a fair bit, but the Jeremy Levy, that is the mayor of Hampstead, has been just a genocidal maniac. But it's been so aggressive that it's even worth mentioning. The usual deal with someone like Goldie Gamari, hardcore Gusano, is not really worth it. But Levy is exceptionally aggressive, and it's been good to see Engler confront him repeatedly. There was a quote, I'm paraphrasing here, where basically Levy was justifying the killing of Palestinian, children and Palestinians because it was a good versus evil fight, basically. And when Eve confronted him for that, he's just a depraved person beyond words. But on the other fronts, I also saw Engler was talking about this private school Tenenbaum chat, right? It's apparently a charity, which is, I mean, it's not surprising because the Canadian state would love to, loves to help Israel because it wants a colonial state in the region. It fits with what Canada is. But it's notable. Eve's work actually even got a student there who the guy's name was Amir Fleischman. And yeah, in terms of the racism, they recruit West Bank settlers come teach in Canada. There's just they push false narratives about, oh, they try to claim basically Nakba didn't happen. Arabs just left voluntarily, that kind of crap. And this is a charity, right? Suppose this it's supposed to be a charity. At least that's what it said, right? And they just get to do this the way that they want. So yeah, those things are there, and what can I say? It's not exactly surprising, but I'm curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the Jewish schools um, are mainly Zionist in Canada. There's all the summer camps, and I don't know if I said this on this show before, but many of these Jewish summer camps are run by IDF soldiers on their summer vacation. So you have an indoctrination pipeline. And can you imagine if, let's say, any other community had these schools subsidized as charities, and they are bringing soldiers from a different country to indoctrinate the children uh, throughout their life? And then, you know, so that this is a big thing to deal with. Obviously, there's you can't touch these schools right now if you have these politicians that are in control of the state and its apparatuses. So the rot is through and through. But if there is somebody that should be targeting these Jewish schools, it should be those IJV, the Independent Jewish Voices, and others that claim to be supportive of Palestinian liberation. This is their job. I know that Natura Carta, the religious anti-Zionist movement, they put their body in front of the Zionist and get beaten by them, and we see that happening inside occupied Jerusalem, with the Natura Carta movement and the raids on their neighborhoods because they fly the Palestinian flag. So I would say the issue of these Jewish schools and the issue of synagogues that are preaching hate in Canada, synagogues that are Zionists, should be a priority for a group like IJV. And if Independent Jewish Voices keeps on avoiding confronting the Zionists within their communities, they're really relegating their duties, and they're only doing the easy thing, which is to go and demonstrate with the Palestinian people in the streets of Canada. That's everybody else is doing it, but it's a responsibility of Jews who call themselves anti-Zionists, or Jews that claim to support the liberation of Palestine, to confront these rabbis and these school headmasters and teachers that are teaching this hate to their children. And finally, it's amazing that Eve is doing this. But again, where are these Jewish anti-Zionists that are not holding these politicians that are claiming to speak on behalf of the Jewish community. This shitty mayor and the other shitty MPs, like Melissa Landsman, that keep on dirtying the name of Judaism and desecrating it every time they open their mouth with the hate that they're preaching. They are speaking on behalf of the Jewish community. And it's the responsibility, first and foremost, of Jewish Canadians that claim to be against Zionism or against the genocide in Palestine, even if they don't want to call themselves anti-Zionist, which is a crazy situation by JV, still not calling itself anti-Zionist. But if they want to call themselves anti-Zionist or against the genocide, they have to confront these politicians, these rabbis, these schools, these organizations. Yves Engler has been putting himself in the face of these Zionists for a long time, and he's been labeled so many times names by these fascists, and he's still going. Because why? Because these are Canadian politicians. He's a Canadian citizen. But it's actually more important that these Jewish, quote unquote, anti-Zionists do this work. I want to see them actually get arrested trying to stop this hate monger of a mayor from preaching his hate from the pulpit. He claims to represent their communities in the neighborhood of Hampstead, you know. So it's supposed to be a quote unquote Jewish neighborhood. And so let's see where is this community that is there? Why don't they go to his own riding members? Show me.
So, all right, well, we'll move on to something which is there's some reporting in the Maple about CJA and how eventually they got around new lobbying changes. It was Davide Mastracci that reported on it. So from the sounds of it, this basically the lobbying trip, it was paid for by United Jewish Appeal Federation of Greater Toronto. That's not a lobby group registered. So from what I can tell, they're connected. These organizations are connected. So that's basically how they got through the rules. But it's some good reporting by Mastracci. I'll give him definitely credit there. And basically, it was brought up in Parliament, and nothing's really going to happen there. There's going to be no consequences.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's
surprising. So surprising.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the corruption is very deep, and these politicians are all sock puppets. They're all bought off. If you have enough money, you probably can buy one of these politicians. But unfortunately, we don't have the money to buy these politicians. But yeah, like you look at how corrupt they'll go around these regulations that they supposedly put in to stop a campaign that before, lobbied the government against this. Lobbying against lobbies. Can you imagine the ridiculousness of it? That it's not already something that is out of the picture. And it will continue until there is a political party that is not already bought off, that the masses can create. There's no hope in, of course, the liberals or the conservatives. And I would just say, for anyone that has any illusions, there's no hope in the NDP, there's no hope in the Greens, and there's no hope in the Bloc Québécois. They're all Zionist. wall to wall. Okay, you
Yeah,
may
and I mean,
see.
I always what I co-wrote an article a while ago, back when I was in Vietnam, um, and it was even with the NDP's big Palestine motion that everybody wanted to hype up. It condemned Palestinian resistance and even the end motion. It didn't even call for unilateral recognition of just a state of Palestine, right? That even that just a recognition of a state of Palestine itself is not really anti-Zionist because it's still, normalizing the existence of the Zionist entity. But even that they couldn't do. So no, the NDP is a hopeless cause. You're completely wasting your energy in that party, completely.
Yes, yes, and of course, the key word is Zionism. All of these. There's no. I haven't heard any politician in the parliament say they do not acknowledge the right of a Jewish state to exist in the land of Palestine at any cost. Okay, this is what Zionism is, and you know that is a political choice, and there's no there's nobody to represent equality for the Palestinians, and end to the apartheid, and end to diaspora, refugees, return, all of these things. So, but we know, looking at all the surveys done of much of the population in the West, that in the US last just a few days ago, 70% of the population calls for ceasefire and end of weapons to Israel. I mean, this is in the US. This is the hardcore country supposedly supporting Israel. So you could imagine what is in Canada, what is in the other countries in the West, which are much more, even their own governments are less on the same side as the United States with Israel. So right now, we're reaching a point in these countries, in Canada including, where the state does not want to represent the population. There's such a huge schism between the populace and the officials that are supposed to represent their will. And in order to maintain this power and to maintain, you know, uh, the government is going to have to deploy more and more oppression. Okay. So we saw that now the beginnings with these attacks in the encampments in Canada. In Alberta is the most right-wing province in the country. But as this war expands, and it will expand, the repression will have to increase for the state uh, to if the state does not want to heed the call of the populace, and look in the situation that this war grows much bigger, and that is what is predicted. Uh, where will Canada fall? Do you think the Canadian government is going to say, I'm not going to side with the United States in a war with Israel against Lebanon? Because Hezbollah will definitely liberate half of Palestine before any, if not all of Palestine, if the United States and Canada and other colonial governments don't come to the aid of the Zionists. So if that happens, people, will be rounded up in Canada that are critical of this war. We're gonna go to that direction, but slowly and surely.
Well, speaking of potential of repression, it's our friend of the show, Slimeball, the man who tried to blame a sexual assault charge on the Chinese. It's Kevin Vuong, the independent MP. What an honest dude. So it's this Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism group that's like, up to some hijinks again. They caught my eye first when they were trying to get Gada Sassa punished for her basically Palestine activism. They're trying to get the slogans, such as globalize Intifada, long live October 7th, basically support Palestinian resistance. they're trying to get that openly, criminalized. There's been attempts to criminalize pro-Palestinian rhetoric. I mean, I'm sure you're probably familiar with, the events around Charlotte Cates facing arrest. Now, somebody that I'm familiar with, his name is Tynan Liebert. I believe he also got arrested around pro-Palestinian resistance speech. So it is coming, and now you have this, this Zionist group, and of course you have Kevin Vuong backing it, and shocker, shocker, it's not exactly like it's getting no backing from elsewhere. So, oh, of course, Honest Reporting Canada, which David Mastracci has done reporting on, its billionaire-backed organization. Zionists are backing this too. It's they're fascists. Zionism is fascism.
Yeah.
It's coming up, and as you were saying, it's triggering along. It is what it is at this point. It just has to be fought, really. So I think that's the end of it for now, anyways. Other than to say, of course, that Canada abstained from a motion that would give Palestine some extra rights around the UN.
State status at the United Nations General Assembly. And of course, it was all anyways theatrics because, they had to re-refer it to the Security Council where the United States anyways vetoed last time and they'll veto again. The United Nations is not going to liberate Palestine. Neither will the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court. It's going to be liberated on the battlefield. I was watching today the chief prosecutor of the ICC speaking at the Security Council about the threats that the United States has been making to him and the other judges in the ICC about if they publish arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Israeli officials. And so, of course, he's still sitting on it. He's saying that he's not threatened, but he still didn't issue the arrest warrants. And even if the arrest warrants are issued, who cares? Can the ICC go grab Netanyahu? There has to be a force to grab Netanyahu. So what we can, see actually how the ground is changing here, by the way. I want to just mention Lebanon, what's happening on the border here, and then we can end it. Yeah, in the last 72 hours, there's been huge developments here on the border in the south that included Hezbollah, having dogfights in the air with F-15s and F-16s with Hezbollah's drones, and Hezbollah's drones outmaneuvering the F-15s and F-16s and hitting their targets. We've had Hezbollah, because Hezbollah destroyed all the surveillance equipment that Israel has on the border over the last 6-7 months. The Israelis had to put up a Zeppelin balloon up in the air that is tethered to the ground in order to see into South Lebanon, and Hezbollah managed to hit the command center of this balloon, the equipment, and to hit the base where it's tethered. The balloon lifted and flew into Lebanon, and Hezbollah downed it and collected the equipment. And finally, just a few hours ago, Hezbollah hit the deepest it has since the beginning of this war with a swarm of 3 drones on one of the major command bases of the Israeli military, all the way beside Tabariya city on Tabariya Lake. So it's like almost 40 kilometers away from the border with South Lebanon. And this only could have happened because of the fact that in the last specifically month, Hezbollah had kind of carpet bombed almost everything between this base, 35 kilometers away, and the border. And now the drones are reaching further targets easier. They've destroyed multiple air defense batteries, those Iron Dome batteries. Just in yesterday, there was 2 of them destroyed. So you could see how many over the months. So yeah, the front in Lebanon is heating up, and this is an indicator of where we're going.
All right, thanks again, Laith. So this will be the end of the episode, 4th episode, Canada and Palestine, the war on Zionism. So what I'll say to the audience is, if you're appreciating the work that's being done here, the journalism, you should be supporting both the Canada Files and Free Palestine TV. So we'll put the link down there to support the Canada Files, and I will also put the link to support Free Palestine TV down there as well. Laith, if there's anything else you'd want to say, this would be the time.
Thank you very much, man. Have a nice night.
All right, and thank you, Laith, and thank you to the audience. This is it, folks. Have a good day. Bye.